Earth Day, nominated by the US Congress in 1972. So this is, I think, the 53rd annual Earth Day celebration, not to be confused with the World Environment Day, which is on the 5th of June every year. And the topic of this lecture is a potential future for humanity and how we can use resources more wisely in the future, and how we can discuss it in general. So, I am a representative of the EOS, the Earth Organization for Sustainability. We were founded in 2006. We are an independent association incorporated according to the laws of the Kingdom of Sweden. And we are organizing a movement in a holomic organization, meaning that we have autonomous groups that are doing things that they want to do locally. So we have one group in the United States as well, and they are developing software to map the resource usage of the planet, and they are also making communities for homeless people. So they are making modular barracks where homeless people could live and sleep in the city of Olympia in Washington State. So our goal is to testing alternative socio-economic systems. And our method is project work and research. So we are doing things physically. A lot of you have seen this one. It used to be white, now it's black actually, because we have changed the panels. It's Noldenhem and it's the biodome here that we built and donated to the urban gardeners of Noldenhem. So other groups that are doing activism are doing activism often in a way that is disruptive. We are doing activism in a way that is proactive and is adding to communities permanently. So we want to build up. So we are living in the 21st century right now, and we are dealing with 21st century issues. We have a climate emergency that is growing ever more every year. And we have other crises as well. We have a soil and freshwater crisis where 70% of the soils and 1/3 of the freshwater reservoirs are threatened to be destroyed during this century. We have an increasing awareness of the crisis that we see. And the main issue is decoupling. Is it possible or not? So what we can see is that we have more green technologies implemented since the 1990s. Yet, environmental destruction continues as before. The world economy has also grown by 4,000%, by 40 times since the year 1900. And that's inflation adjusted. But that is very good, actually, that people have gotten better lives and better life expectancy, especially in poorer countries. And Sweden used to be a poorer country. But the question is how sustainable it is, and if people in 30 years, in 60 years, and in 90 years could have decent lives on our planet. And we want people to have decent and good lives on the planet in the future. So we want to discuss how to reach it together. Now, you may or may not be aware that there is a conflict within the green movement worldwide. And that conflict is about the word decoupling. What is decoupling? Well, decoupling is when we separate the bad effects of economic growth from the economic growth itself. So we are separating, let's say, child labor, exploitation, but also environmental pollution is similar from economic growth. And then we can continue with economic growth and continue with the system that we have today, but have it in a good manner with minimally disruptive reforms. Then there are others who say that decoupling is not possible, and the climate emergency is primarily caused by uncontrolled economic growth. So one can say that decouplers want free growth and non-couplers want degrowth in general. Non-couplers do not need to be against technology. We in the US are not against technology. We are for technological development of technologies which can improve human well-being, but we are against technological development for technological development's own sake. So for example, we are very critical against crypto because we see crypto as an entirely destructive type of technological application. We are going back one step. So what our argument is that the decoupling debate was solved already 200 years ago nearly by this guy, Stanley Jevons, a British economist, who noted that technology leads to increased yields. That is pretty obvious, but it doesn't only lead to, for example, when you introduce modern harvesting machines in agriculture in the 19th century. It did not only lead to increased yields in the farms and wheat fields that were already in usage, but it actually led to an expansion of farms because it now became economically rational to use areas that previously were unproductive. So you could, areas that were non-profitable could now be exploited. And I have two cases. The Amazon rainforest, it used to be a very biodiverse but very economically unproductive region back in the 20th century because the soil was sulfuric. It was first with the introduction of modern nitrate solutions that reduced the sulfuric aspects of the soil that the area could become utilized for large-scale farming. So the Amazon has largely turned into pastures today, at least the southeastern half of it. Another example is the tar sands in Canada. And that is because we have gotten more effective fuel engines that are using less oil than the engines of the 20th century. And that makes those previously economically irrational areas to exploit for oil open for oil drilling. A typical oil field in the year 1900 contained around 5% of oil in volume of the soil. Today, if you are lucky, it contains 0.2% oil. But it is still economically viable to use. And they are discussing right now to start drilling in Greenland and drilling outside the Sea of Pakistan. And that shows in itself that solar, wind, and similar are not replacing oil. They are adding to the economy, but they are not replacing the usage of oil. Because if oil was being replaced, oil exploitation would go down, but it isn't. So within our organization, and this is an aspect that is totally unique for the US, we have 3 criteria for a sustainable future. A global ecological budget ceiling. So we cannot use what more than 1 Earth could renew every year. We put a limit on how much resources can be used every year. So basically it eliminates uncontrolled growth. Next step, and here we are in agreement with the proponents of green growth, we should have a circular economy with a full integrated life cycle for all economic activities. Doing more with less, and third point here, unique for us, only produce stuff when people actively ask for stuff. And the third point, pretty radical, I know, but still we are all sharing this planet. So we should, and the time is here, for a global income floor. No human being should need to be born homeless in a refugee camp. No human being should need to grow up so hungry that their mental faculties aren't developed as they should. All human beings have a right to a decent life, and that is a basic, especially if we eliminate uncontrolled growth, then we need to take care of the weakest in our global community. Because the current system says that since everyone are going to become rich from growth, we can't accept poverty. But if we are going to live within the means of the planet, we have to deal with poverty proactively. So here it becomes more radical still, but this is a proposal for a radical situation we are trained to. So our model imagines the replacement of money with a new energy-based currency called energy credits. And energy is the basis of all activities on Earth. I hope the music doesn't disturb you. I think it's pretty good and it's not too loud. But it might become a bit louder still. And it always begins at the same time. So we are measuring energy in 2 ways. The first one is exergy. And exergy is the total available energy contained within one system. For example, within one power plant, within one piece of coal, within a human body, or within the entire universe. Exergy measures the total energy budget. And then emergy, total energy cost to perform an action. And that is how much it costs to, for example, reload your cell phone, or to fry a bag of popcorn or similar. Energy can be created or destroyed. It can just be used and wasted. So the design is the name of the proposal. We are building it on 4 institutions: the technique, the energy survey, the energy credits, and hormones. So the technique is envisioned as a global international network for the management of the energy accounting system. It will not have the power to make laws, or to execute laws, or to sentence people or similar. It is just made to deal with the energy credit system. So it's responsible for compiling the energy survey, distributing energy credits and monitoring how energy credits are allocated after they are distributed. So that's the only three things it's doing. The energy survey will be a continuous study of all the ecosystems and resources work. It will be decentralized, so it will be conducted in the entire world, and everyone would gather data. And that would determine the global ecological budget, how much resources humanity is allowed to use for the next 2 years, let's say. And directly when an energy survey is finished and implemented, the new energy survey begins. And this is because we are 8 billion people, we are going to become 10 billion people soon. We need to find an organized, structured way of measuring how much resources we are sharing on this planet. Now the fun part, the energy credits. The global ecological budget is divided into energy credits, and they are distributed both to citizens, to companies, and to public utilities like municipalities and similar. And they represent the total production capacity that we have. So the total exergy. So the entire exergy budget is divided between humanity and all institutions. Energy credits can only be used once. So let's say that with money you are paying your mechanic to change your tire, and your mechanic uses that money to buy a bag of buns to his family and so on, and the grocery shop is using that to pay their heating bills and so on. Energy credits can only be used once because they represent the energy cost for changing that tire. And they cease to exist after the 2-year period for which they were used. So, how does it work? Every user allocates a share of their energy credits, allocates to what they want produced for them. Prices are determined by the energy cost of the entire production process for an item. So if you want a pair of shoes, you pay what it costs to take out the raw materials, to refine them, to assemble everything in the shoes, and to transport the shoes, and then the cost of restoring the damaged environment. So in this system there is no profits there, but Hollands, for example, companies that are well liked by their users, so more users are using them, would see that all their co-workers will receive a higher income the next period because of the product they have done that is popular. So that is still creating an incentive to producing good stuff. Conversely, those who produce bad services will see their income of energy credits reduced, which would create an incentive for them to improve there. So there will be income differences under this system, but the income differences won't be like one person having the entire wealth of 3 countries. It will be more like by a factor of 4 or 5. So which economic benefits are there lists for the entire system? Obviously, reduce the global ecological footprint from 1.7 Earth per year to 1.0 Earth per year. So we are living within our means. Prices will be basically the ecological effect a product has on society. Today, in our current society, ecological products are usually more expensive than non-ecological products because the company that makes ecological products must account for more factors and make more expensive production methods. Under this system, it will be reverse, that it will be more expensive the less ecologically sustainable things are. There will be no advertising because there will be no incentives to make products first and then try to get people to purchase them. So on-demand production where feasible is not feasible when it comes to food. You can't grow up tomato on demand, but you can, for example, just produce a cell phone when people are asking for it. The planet will recuperate more when there are reduced incentives to produce. There will be a more efficient use of space in buildings through modularization, because since we are using a cyclical production model, we will, for example, when it comes to cell phones, if something breaks down inside the cell phone, we just change the thing that breaks down instead of throwing away the entire thing and building a new cell phone. And then they do social benefits. An income floor guarantees a minimum standard of life. So it won't have anyone who necessarily has to live on the street. Reduced inequality between countries, and this will, for example, reduce forced migration flows. So human trafficking will be reduced, as well as a reduction of fraud and corruption between countries. This one is big. No generational inequality can be built up because energy credits cease to exist after 2 years. This will be valuable for a lot of people, less work time, even in jobs that are absolutely necessary, like for example firefighters or emergency staff, because more people are needed there. So more people could share the work. And we will see less unemployment as well, because people will not cost money since everyone are needed. So it will be more time for family, friends and interests, whatever you like. There will probably be some setbacks as well, that for example some traveling will be comparatively more expensive if it's done through flying with jet planes or similar, but that we can see. So what are we working on right now? So we have two projects that are kind of resting right now. So the first one is the Nyvide project. The goal is to build a partially self-sufficient community that should exist near an existing community. And the idea is to produce part of this community's own energy and use energy accounting to measure it internally and see how it could be used internally. We could also produce some of our own food and use an energy accounting system to deal with that. And the idea is to build several of these nodes and to even convert existing societies a bit to this, so we can see how they interact with one another and what could happen. And this one is a way to hopefully fund the Nyvide project, and it's Klimatopia. So it began as an idea for a book, The Climate Battlefield Manual. I saw during my time as a substitute teacher that using games as a way to help children learn helped them learn a lot about how systems work. So I used a game about the Stone Age to explain human development during the Stone Age. So the idea is a strategy game, much like Civilization, if you remember Civilization, that simulates climate change. And the player commands the United Nations. And on the 15th of November 2023, we had a pitch with Startup for Climate, and we almost won 1 million to finish the game. But we have actually made an alpha for the game, which you can play online. So this is a bit about what we are doing. And we are doing another thing now, and that is that we are going to start up a hydroponics system and grow hydroponics. Because one of our members want to donate a hydroponic system to the organization. So, thank you for your time. And do you have any questions?